It's time now for your weekly fishing reports and real-time outdoor news from the Southwest region. This is Fox Sports Outdoors Southwest.
In the northern half of the United States, they have the salmon run. The southern half of the United States, we don't have that, but we have something just as exciting. It's the annual spring rite of passage, the spring white bass spawning run. It's the one time of the year when hundreds of thousands of white bass push up creeks and rivers all across the southern half of the country to spawn. And it's to that end that brings us to arguably the most famous location in the entire southern half of the U.S. for spring white bass fishing. Behind me is the Sabine River. It runs a long ways from just south of Dallas, Texas, all the way to Toledo Bend Reservoir on the Texas-Louisiana border. And it's up that river that push some of the biggest white bass anywhere in the southern half of the country. On today's show, we're going to get out there and show you some of that fishing, hopefully catch a few and give you some tips and pointers on how you can plan your very own springtime fishing trip to catch these big white bass here on this river. We're going to take the Bass Tracker Pro Team 175 out, do a little scouting around. While we're doing that, we're going to be shooting you around your region for your local fishing reports from your favorite lakes, rivers, and bays from our expert team of reporters. So while we get in the boat and get started, first we take you back to the FSN studios for your weekend planner.
The Salooner tables look promising with the best conditions of the month predicted for this weekend. Saturday looks to have good conditions with the peak time starting around 10 a.m. Sunday's outlook is even better with the prime daylight activity beginning at 10:46 in the morning. Expect sunrise to take place at 7:19 with sunset happening at 7:45. And Sunday also features a new moon, so evenings will have little, if any, moonlight. We'll be right back with all of the current fishing reports from around the Southwest. And I'll return for this week's Whataburger Ask the Pro with Walleye Pro Keith Cavayas.
Hey, our sweepstakes for the month of April is going on right now, and some lucky winner is going to win one of the best sonar GPS units Lowrance has ever invented. It's the Elite 7 GPS charting technology, traditional 2D sonar and 3D sonar, all in the same unit. You can split that screen 3 ways and see them all at the same time. Plus, someone else wins a brand new Lew's BB1, the longest casting bait cast reel ever, plus a bunch of motor guide gear, shirts, and fishing hats. To enter, go to our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com or our Facebook page. Get entered now. Contest ends at the end of April.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. By Mercury Marine, celebrating 75 years of marine excellence. By Stren Fishing Lines, the standard of dependability. By Tracker Boats, it's more than just a boat, it's a tracker. And by Fort Worth Nissan. Fox Sports Outdoors is powered by Fort Worth Nissan.
There's one. There's our first Sabine River white bass. Look at that. Big dude too. Sabine River white bass. If I can get my thumb in his mouth, look at that. Woo, that's a pig right there. Hey, welcome back everybody. Fox Sports Outdoors today, on the road, on the Sabine River. No, don't flop, don't flop. Catching these big old spawning female white bass on their migration run up the river. There. Man, there's a good start right there. Big, fat, spawning female right there. Well, we're not keeping them today, so we're gonna let her go back. The spring spawning run for white bass, really all across the South, starts about the 1st of January. They begin their migration. Normally the males go first. Then the females will follow in behind them. By the first part of April, the males and females are mixed, and boy, when it shuts off, it just ends cold. So you want to plan your trip 1st of January to the 1st of April. Now, if you want to come here, there's a great campground that is easily accessible to this location, and it's River Ridge Campground. These trips, these guide trips that they give there, book up to a year in advance. It's on the tail end of the run for this year. In fact, they're about done for this year, so you really need to be planning for next year. All right, how about getting you started with some fishing reports around the region? And let's go to Brian Hughes, Texas Freshwater, and Bill Olson down on the Texas Gulf Coast.
Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's Lone Star Lakes, brought to you by More Security and Heritage Safes. Now, More Security is the exclusive distributor for Heritage Safes in our entire viewing area. Give them a shout, they'll find the safe that matches your needs and your budget and handle delivery and installation. Now this week we're talking about bass fishing, and right now bass fishing in Texas means the spawn. If you're in South Texas, the spawn is just starting. If you're on a power plant lake, you're in post-spawn, and most of the rest of the state is seeing pre-spawn mode on the bass fishing right now. All of that can be handled by doing the same thing, and that is fish that 8 to 4 foot zone of water. Whether you're on the bank or in your boat, you'll want to work that zone. Use your soft plastics, your jigs, plastic crawfish in black blue or watermelon red, plastic lizards in the same colors, jig and pig in black blue, or your peppermint flake colors will work as well. Plus, you want to use moving baits like your spinner baits and red rattle traps. That's this week's Lone Star Lakes, brought to you by More Security and Heritage Safes. Now let's check in with Mr. Bill Olson. He's on the coast.
Hi folks, Texas Outdoors Journal brings you this week's report and has once again been named the best major outdoor magazine in Texas. With all the spring fishing and hunting activities, you should be reading Texas Outdoors Journal. We'll tell you where to go, what to expect once you get there, and how to do it a little bit better. Pick up a copy of Texas Outdoors Journal on newsstands or subscribe at the website on the screen. Well, as we continue into spring and as water temperatures continue to struggle towards 70 degrees, here are a few tips to try. While we still have cooler water, particularly on the middle and lower coast, try fishing topwater lures slowly. Since the water is cool, the algae has not yet come back. It can be an excellent lure to fish during the warmer portions of the day. Use a lower gear ratio reel and fish the bait over deeper drop-offs and grass flats. Now on those cloudy days when weight fishing, a Corky, Catch 2000, or some other slow sinking bait is a good option. Strike Pro's Hunchback is another option. It's a shallow running crankbait that can be worked slowly over shallow flats for both trout and reds. Now the intercoastal waterways around the jetties, passes, and deeper channels are all corridors that fish travel and hold. Soft mullet imitation baits like egret's wedgetail are good choices. You can also fish their voodoo shrimp and match both bait choices available to game fish. From the Galveston jetties to the Texas City Dike and into East Galveston Bay are all prime places to intercept a variety of fish, including speckled trout, black drum, redfish, and sheep's head. It's how and where you set up that will determine what is going to be caught. Lower coast anglers are seeing good action for those drifting the west side of the lower Laguna Madre around Laguna Vista and the north side of the causeway. This weekend, both Saturday and Sunday have a double tide schedule of 2 high and 2 low tides each day. I'm Bill Olson, and I'll see you on the coast.
There we go. Swimming down current. And coming up, female. All right. Hey, welcome back everybody. We're doing a little springtime white bass fishing on the Sabine River today. How about that for a chunk? All right, back he goes. And let me explain to you about the cycle of a white bass. They live all winter in the reservoirs, in the lakes, fairly deep. In fact, they can go as deep as 40 or 50 feet. They're triggered by 2 things to begin this spawning run. First thing is temperature, water temperature. As soon as it hits about 50 degrees, it begins to pull those white bass towards shallow water and start searching out those creeks and rivers. The second thing is current. We've got a lot of current in this river right now. It's like a magnet to white bass. It just pulls them up the creeks and rivers. Then when they spawn, they do something very unusual. White bass free sprays those eggs. The females just broadcast those eggs out into the current, and then the males come in behind and broadcast and fertilize right behind them. And it depends on the movement of the current to hatch those eggs, and they hatch up here in the river and then swim back to the reservoir. That's the life cycle of a white bass. And again, January, February, March, prime times to catch them up here in these creeks and rivers. Let's get you some more fishing reports right now, and let's go to Oklahoma. Here's Gary Dollahan.
Hey, if you're in Oklahoma, you're an angler, you can't help but be thinking about white bass fishing in the state right now. Our state is famous for its white bass spring spawning runs, and this is the time that takes place big time throughout the state. The late March going into April, all the way through April time frame. Now, an excellent area is what I've got right here, Shoto Bend, the Grand River system between Fort Gibson and the Hudson Lakes. An excellent fishery for white bass, but we have many places like this all across the state. I talked to Ivan Martin, who guides on Grand Lake. He said those fish are up there above the Twin Bridges area right now in big numbers. Catch them there, and all these different places doing the same thing. Now, my favorite way to fish for them, and what Ivan is doing as well, is fishing a jig head with a soft plastic crappie body on it. Good choices for that, the Bobby Garland Stroller. I personally like this blue and chartreuse color called Bluegrass. I also like the Bobby Garland Swim Minnow in the shad or pearl colors like you see here. Also a good choice this time of year is a chrome rattle trap. Now you want to make a quartering cast upstream, reel it fast enough that it comes down with the current, but also fast enough to keep it off the bottom as much as possible, natural swimming action with that same current speed going on. Even better if you have something that's breaking the current along the shoreline area, such as a tree that's fallen over and giving somewhat of a break to the current area itself. White bass fishing in Oklahoma, you can't beat it, but one thing about it, you can't catch them if you don't go.
One of the giants. All right, just a good solid white bass right there. All right, let's let that sucker go back right there. We're gonna take a quick commercial break. Catching them on light spin and tackle. One little tip here is I'm using braided line. This is Sonic braid right here. And you can get away with it because the water's off color. When it's murky like this, there's no chance that the fish are gonna see it. So you might as well use something really tough. I use about 20-pound Sonic braid. That's perfect for these conditions. Stay with us, coming right back to the Sabine.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Costa Sunglasses. See what's out there. By Luz, setting a new standard in fishing performance. Feel the difference. By Strike King Lures, #1 in fishing. By Lowrance Electronics, find, navigate, dominate. And by Whataburger. Try one of Whataburger's all-time favorites, 24 hours a day.
Right out here, edge of a big sandbar. That's a good white. Look at the fatness of that dude, will you? Let's just hoist him up. All right. That's a big fat one right there. Welcome back, everybody. You're on Fox Sports Outdoors. Today we're talking about white bass fishing. We're on the Sabine River, deep East Texas. And I'll tell you, a lot of these white bass are pushing 2 pounds. We've caught one that's been over 2 pounds, and then just a lot of solid ones that probably wouldn't quite go 2 pounds. Let me tell you about what's going on here. We've had a big rain upstream, upriver, just south of Dallas-Fort Worth, about a 2-inch rain, and it made this river rise about 6 feet. Made it muddy, dirty, a lot of debris floating down it, and made the conditions real difficult. But what we've been able to do is key in on some little ditches and creeks and feeders into the river that are a little bit clearer. You can see on the right side of your screen that water is clearer, and then on the left-hand side is the actual river, and it's a lot muddier and a lot dirtier. So that's one of the keys if you find yourself in this kind of a condition, which you very often can in the springtime. Rains, muddies things up, changes everything. Look for those little feeder creeks like that one. All right, let's check in with some more fishing reports from your local area.
Hi friends, this is Cajun Phil with your Fox Louisiana Fishing Report. I tell you what, like I said last week, I was going to be doing the entire report again this week. Next week, hopefully we'll get Captain Kevin on here with me. But he's right now guiding up at Hackberry, Louisiana, catching lots of speckled trout and redfish. They're doing really good, mostly plastics right now. Over in the eastern part of the state, I tell you what, we talked to several guides over there. We talked to Captain Brett Ortiz. He's doing good around Hopedale. We also talked to Captain Jack at Sweetwater Marina. They've been guiding every day, 3 or 4 guide boats going out. They've been doing really good on both speckled trout and redfish. As far as the bass fishing goes, well, you remember last week I told you Cody, Brenda Kevins, they went together to Toledo Bend. Cody caught a big one, 7. Well, I'll tell you what, Charlie McGee couldn't stand it. He's one of our captains here at Cajun Paradise Lodge at Charters. Charlie McGee hooked up. He went over to Toledo Bend. He got up in about 3 foot of water. He was throwing a red rattle trap. He catches one over 10 pounds. He weighed it, let it go, so it's still swimming out there. Shallow water's the key, 3 foot up to the shoreline. Spinner baits are working really good, especially a willow leaf, gold and silver blade, 1 gold, 1 silver. I like the gold in the middle, silver on the top. Also like either white or a chartreuse skirt. They're working really well. Things like rattle trap, flap stick, hunchbacks. These baits are all working good in shallow water.
Got it. Yellow bass, look at the size of that. Oh, wow. That is a huge yellow bass. Yellow bass is a completely different fish than a white bass, different family, and they don't get nearly that big normally. The stripes down their sides are much more pronounced. He's got kind of a yellow tint to the bottom half of the fish, and they normally only get about 8 inches long, and that dude right there is about 1.25 pounds, something like that. That's a huge yellow bass. All right, back he goes. This trolling motor that I'm using in this current is absolutely unbelievable. This is the brand new Motor Guide X3 trolling motor. It's got so many cool features, I don't even have time to list them all, but I'll tell you the number one thing they've done with it is they've quieted this bracket down because of a composite square pin system. And I'll explain it to you a lot more on a YouTube video that I have up on the how-to section of our YouTube channel. Go to our website, foxsportsoutdoors.com, click on the YouTube logo, go to the how-to section, and then look for the video on the Motor Guide X3 trolling motor. It is a dynamite trolling motor. They've quieted this bracket down so much. It's the quietest bracket I've ever seen. It's got a composite flexible shaft, lifetime guarantee on it. It'll never break. Just tons of improvements. Unbelievable trolling motor for a very affordable price. Check it out on our YouTube channel.
Fox Sports Outdoors is brought to you by Exide AGM Marine Batteries. Starts like new, stays like new longer. By Gene LaRue and Bobby Garland Lures. With our baits, a good day of fishing is in the bag. By Motor Guide, trolling motors engineered for anglers. And by Nitro Performance Fishing Boats. Welcome to the big leagues.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for the Waterburger Ask the Pro. This week's question is from Brady, who asked, how does the walleye spawn compare with the bass spawn? For the answer, let's ask professional walleye angler Keith Cavayas.
Well, in general, walleye spawning is typically going to happen before bass. In fact, quite a bit before it. Up north where I'm from, it can happen almost 2 months ahead of time. Down south, it can happen even more than that. With walleyes, what typically happens is pre-spawn, they tend to congregate together, and it can be a great time to go walleye fishing no matter where you are in the country because they're in smaller areas, and once you find them, there'll be a bunch there. Once spawn comes, it can get a little bit tougher to find the fish, and in fact, post-spawn for the week or two after it, it's very tough to find the big walleyes, although the little ones will hang around. So again, in general, just a little bit earlier in the year for walleyes.
Thank you, Keith. If you have a question for one of the experts, visit our website, follow the Ask the Pro link, and let us know. Now let's see which viewer wins the Costa Catch of the Week.
This week's winner in the Costa Catch of the Week contest is Robert Christian of Killeen, Texas, and he's shown here with a giant 12.3 pound largemouth bass. He caught at O.H. Ivy Reservoir in West Texas, and he did release that bass to be caught another day. Now, if you would like to enter our contest and have a chance to win a brand new pair of Costa sunglasses, all you have to do is go to our website at foxsportsoutdoors.com. On the right-hand side of the front page is the Costa Catch of the Week box. Click in there, follow the instructions, and send us your photo. Each week, our winner wins a brand new pair of Costa sunglasses, and you can see all of the Costas at their website. Go back to the front page of our website, Click on the Costa logo and you can see all of the frame and lens styles, like the frame style that I've been wearing on this week's episode called Salt Break. This week on the Academy Sports and Outdoors Right Stuff feature, I have found the absolute perfect rig to catch these white bass, not only here at the Sabine River, but anywhere you want to catch them. This is my first chance to fish the brand new Lew's Speed Spin tournament spinning reels. Extremely smooth operation, but the thing I like best about it is the drag system. I set it perfectly for these white bass. When they got up close to the boat and made a big run, they could strip that drag very easily. Now, I rigged it on the brand new, again, Lew's Speed Stick American Hero rods. The cool thing about these rods is not only is it a great rod, a perfect spinning rod for this reel, but for every rod purchased, Lew's is going to donate some fishing gear to the Wounded Warriors Project and help our soldiers that come back home from battle to go fishing on their own. Fantastic program. Check it out at the Lew's website. Now, I rigged this up with Stren Sonic braided line, as I mentioned earlier, and that's great because in this off-colored water you can get away with that. And we caught almost all of these fish on the Bobby Garland Stroller soft plastic bait. It's got a little swimming tail that did a great job of attracting strikes from these big white bass. Last season on the show, I mentioned that both my wife and I were going to get our concealed carry licenses and begin carrying a firearm. We wanted to do that for two reasons. Number one, we wanted to be able to protect ourselves and our family should that need ever arise. But number two, we wanted to be able to do something in case, heaven forbid, we were ever in one of those tragic situations like has unfolded at so many of our schools, churches, and theaters over the last few years. Now, the process of getting that CCL was actually pretty interesting. We learned lots of things. We learned how to handle and clean a firearm properly. We learned that there are ways that you can get out of a potentially dangerous situation without ever having to use that firearm. And lastly, we learned that we were both more accurate on the firing range than we ever thought we would be. I believe one thing, and that's that the bad guys already carry weapons. You and I would both be better off if more good guys did. Hey, don't forget to join us on next week's episode. We'll be on at 10:30 on Thursday night and a repeat airing Saturday morning at 7:30, and that is a new time this season. Set your DVR for that Saturday morning time because that time never changes from a live event. Hey, I think you and your fishing buddies or family would thoroughly enjoy a trip here to the Sabine River above Toledo Bend Reservoir on this big white bass spawning run that happens every spring. But you do need to book your trip early. The guide trips here fill up fast and far in advance. So let me give you that information one more time on Tom and Jane Gallenbach's guide service here. They'll get you out here, put you on the fish. It's a big river and a lot of water. They'll show you the exact places where these white bass will be spawning. They run River Ridge Campground. They can fix you up with a camp space, a cabin, and a guide trip. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Barry Stokes saying be safe, have fun. Bye-bye, y'all.